Hi, and thanks for watching. In this Watch Me Build tutorial, I'll be taking my single-family home construction Proforma and expanding it to accommodate a multi-home analysis. Now, this is a request that I commonly get, and I specifically built this model to allow for this type of work to be done. Essentially, the model as it stands has one worksheet, and on that worksheet, you'll find the inputs, the calculation modules, and the outputs. You'll find the investment cash flows, and you'll find the reversion cash flows for your DCF. All of that is encompassed on one worksheet, and that worksheet can analyze the construction and sale of one single family home. However, let's say that you want to analyze the construction of 4 homes, and you want that all in one analysis, maybe over a 2-year period. Well, I'm going to show you how to take this model and expand to really an unlimited number of homes using this methodology. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm using version 1.2 of the model. So you may be using a newer version, and if so, it might look slightly different, but it really doesn't matter for this exercise. And then I have this one worksheet here, the analysis worksheet, and this is where everything happens. And the first step here is I'm going to be duplicating this analysis worksheet several times. In this scenario, we're going to say, okay, we're going to build 4 homes over 2 years, and we want this all part of the same analysis. And so what will happen is we'll have 4 worksheets, one for each home, plus a roll-up worksheet. Now, roll-up is a term that I use fairly often, and that really is, it's summing up cash flows from different properties or different uses. In mixed use or in portfolio level modeling, we use this roll-up concept quite a bit. Here we'll call this roll-up tab the summary tab, and that will summarize the results of our analysis as well as summarize the cash flows of our rolled up 4 properties. And then again, the 4 property tabs will include the inputs, the calculation modules, and the outputs for each of those properties. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll come down to this analysis tab. I'll right click it. I'll go move or copy. And then I'm just going to move to end and create a copy and hit OK. And what happens is this tab is duplicated, identical. All right, so if we click between the two, you'll see they're identical. I'm going to rename this analysis 2 to be summary. And this tab will become our summary tab. I'll move it back to the left. And what I need is I need to ensure that my property tabs are next to one another. And that's important because the formulas we'll be using on the summary tab require that those property tabs are next to one another. The next thing I'm going to do before I duplicate this further, I'm going to make a minor change to our property tab. Just come here, and where it is where we have our project start date, I'm going to link that to the summary tab. And that way, and I'll turn this green. That way, if we want to change the project start date, we just simply change that here on the summary tab. The other thing I'll do is rename this analysis tab. In this case, okay, this first home is lot 11, block A. And each of our homes will have its own name, and again, we'll just name it lot and block. So we have our first, we have our first property tab done. Let's go ahead now and duplicate this. So move or copy, create a copy, move to end. And this will call what? Lot 12. All right, so we change the lot and block within our project description, and then down here we'll rename this worksheet to be lot 12. All right. Now, the next thing I'll do, and this is unique to our subsequent tabs here, is I want the design and engineering and overhead, I want those to be now inputs. And the reason why this matters is the design and engineering and our overhead costs will start later. And by default, this model had that starting just in month 1. But if we do that, then that means the later homes that will be starting construction later on will have some design and engineering costs and overhead costs initially, and that we may or may not want that. So I changed those cells to blue. Otherwise, I think we're happy with this for now. Oh, you know what I'll do? I'll delete that picture. And otherwise, let's go ahead and copy this again. Come back down here to lot 12 block A, right click, move or copy, move to end, create a copy. And then let's rename this to be, let's call this lot 13. And then the lot block here will change to 13, okay? And then again, nothing needs to change yet. So right click, move to end, create a copy, hit OK, and then rename this to be lot 14, okay? Now a few things you'll notice. Everything else on these 4 worksheets, everything else is identical, such that our resulting unlevered IRR should be the same, 39.73, with 69,247 of net profit on an unlevered basis. And we can confirm that here, 69,247, 69,247, and 69,247. The reason I do that, and that's important, is that will help us to error check if we've set up our summary tab correctly. So for now, we have our property tabs done. Now it's important that we don't add anything inside of this area where we have our property tab. So if we want, what we could do is we could just create a section and just call this prop. And then another worksheet here, we call this end. And then maybe change the color of these worksheets to black here, and black, tab color, black. And that just kind of alerts us that we don't want anything else we don't want any other worksheets to be added within this section. What it also means is that any worksheet added really between lot 11 block A and lot 14 block A, any new worksheets added there will be included in our roll up. And you'll see that here in a second when we get to the summary tab. So we come over to the summary tab, let's change the color to green. The reason I do that is I like my input worksheets to be blue. I like my report worksheets to be green. There's only gonna be one input on this summary tab, so green still makes sense. Now the next step is we are going to both make changes to the summary tab to make it a summary worksheet, and then we'll be rolling up the cash flows that we need to roll up. And so the first thing, we'll delete that picture, and then the label here will be picture of plat map. All right, and this is the roll up, the summary of this subdivision, and so it makes more sense we'd have maybe a picture of a plat map here. Let's call this project summary as the title of the worksheet. And then here, we'll just simply call this Foggy Glen. Oops, yeah, Foggy Glen. That's the name of the subdivision, the neighborhood here. All right, so also, as we're just setting up this worksheet, we really don't need, neighborhood makes sense, but we don't need addresses. Those are gonna be on the individual property tabs. We don't need lot size, delete that. Well, you know, actually, let's keep that. Let's delete lot block, but let's call this average lot size, okay? And we'll change that here in a minute. There's no home plan, there's no stories, so we can delete those, and then there are no bedroom, bathrooms, and then no garage. So I delete those items, and then we'll come in here. Okay, neighborhood is Foggy Glen. Average lot size, we'll get to that here in a minute. Otherwise, let's see, we'll delete the data validation here at the bottom. We don't need that. And by the way, when I delete, what I do is I select the rows and I use a control minus sign, and that just deletes the row. And then I'll select all of those rows, right click, and choose hide. I'll just hide those so that they're not in the way anymore. Otherwise, everything in here will be included. It'll just be edited such that it's a roll up of all of our cash flows on each of these property tabs. Now, let's start then at the summary. Well, what do we know? Well, we have we have 3 columns within the summary section, and this is the summary of the project, right? So we have our inflows, which in this case is just simply our sales price. And then we have our outflows, which are project costs plus marketing and closing costs. And the result of those is our net profit. And we note that this is on a levered basis, meaning after debt. And so if we scroll down to our levered cash flow, we'll see the sum of all of our levered cash flow, 57,431. 57,431. So we have then these 3 columns. 2 of them are really just metrics that tell us something about the actual line item, right? So percentage of cost and per square foot. But sales price right now, right? This sales price is pulling from the sales price there. However, what we want it to do is add up the sales price from each of the properties. And so this is where we're going to use a feature that Excel has, where it will sum the same cell across a range of worksheets. So we just start with a sum, as usual. And then we choose the first worksheet in this range. So in that case, it's the furthest left worksheet within this range of property worksheets. And then we hold down Shift and we click the last worksheet within this range here. All right. And so now you see it says sum, and it's just the first worksheet in the range, lot 11, block A, colon, the last worksheet in the range, lot 14, block A, and then it asks for a cell. Well, which cell? Well, the sales price. And I'm going to leave that relative, hit close parentheses, and enter. And now here on the summary tab, you'll notice we have a roll-up or a sum of the sales price for each of the properties. Now currently, because the sales price is the same, if we take that value and we divide it by 4, just as an air check, 399.9, right? Which is the sales price of each of our individual properties. But we could go and change the sales price in each of those properties, and this right here then would change. It would be the sum of those 4. I'm going to change this green, and then all I have to do is copy this down. So I highlight all of those, hit Alt-H-V-F, that copies and pastes as formulas only, and then I change those cells green. Now I'm using an Excel add-in called WST macros, and so you'll see me make quick keyboard shortcuts such as that to change it to green. If you want to change it green on your own, yeah, you just have to highlight these, come up to your font color, and then change it that way. All right. And by the way, green denotes a link to either an input or an output on a different worksheet. That's why I changed those green. This stays black. All of these stay black because they're simply metrics based on calculations on this worksheet. Now we can do one quick air check. Let's take that net profit divided by 4. And what's the result? 57,430. Remember that? 57,430. Well, 431 when you round up. So there we have our summary section is done. And all the rest of these are links within this workbook that will update once we do a similar thing to what we just did down below. Next, we have timing. So we are going to leave the analysis start date the same, and that's all of the worksheets will be driven by this date. Project start is day 1. And these periods are daily periods, right? If you're familiar with the model. So the construction starts what day of the analysis period? Well, it's not driven from this tab, so we need to link back to our range of properties. And the construction start is going to be the minimum day across that range, or equals min, open parentheses, and then we use the same technique we used before. We come to the very first property tab here, click Shift, select the last property tab within that range, and then choose the cell, that cell there, close parentheses, hit Enter. turn that green. That's our construction start. Our construction end is the same logic. So I'll paste those down, except it's the max, not the min. So I copied that down, but then I change that function to max instead of min, hit enter. And then the home closing, I can copy and paste that down. It's the max of both the construction end and the home closing day. Everything else should automatically calculate, and we're done with timing. Project description, what's the average lot size? Well, again, we hit average of the range. Same technique as before, choose the lot size, hit enter, turn that green, and then finished square footage is what? Well, it's the sum of the range, finished square footage, turn that green, and unfinished is also the sum of the unfinished across that range. A total square footage is a calculation that happens on this tab, so we can leave that black. 12,000 square feet is the total across our 4 properties. And that's, we air check it, 3,000 square feet, come back here, 3,000 square feet per property. So we're done with the project description. Next, we move into project cost. Now you're starting to get the hang of this, right? Again, each one of these values is just simply going to be a roll-up of the 4 individual properties. We go sum, select our range, choose the cell, hit enter. We're going to copy and paste down as formulas only, Alt-H-V-F, and then select all these and turn those cells green. Now, these cells out here had been inputs. So for instance, finished square footage building cost was driven by a per square foot cost. Well, this is now going to become just a metric. It'll tell us something. Really, we want to understand what is the blended cost per square foot based on the aggregate of our building costs, both finished and unfinished. And so we do that by just going that amount divided by the finished square footage. There, hit enter, turn that black, and then copy that down. And that will now calculate for the unfinished square footage. And then overhead as a percentage of hard costs. So we turn this black, and then we go our overhead divided by hard costs, which is, let's see, negative hard costs here. Okay, and the reason I turned it negative is because this is a negative value, and that way we result in a positive metric there, 6%. So our overhead equates to 6% of hard costs. We can turn this other costs, non-financeable, label black. And then our finance costs, we can delete that. And then we want to understand, okay, well, this is the rate, so we can delete that one as well. We don't need those 2 metrics. And then marketing is a percentage of sales price, right? It's marketing divided by our total sales price, which is 6%, turn that black. And then closing cost is a percentage of sales price, turn that black, and then that divided by our total sales price, okay? 1%. And then again, the sum of that, let's air check this, take that, divide by 4, 342, 469. 342, 469. Actually, you see it right here. 342, 469. All right, so we can delete that. And then we come down. So this should automatically calculate correctly. Our day start for lot price is going to be equal to our construction start. That's the first lot closing, so I'll just turn that black rather than being blue. And we're done with project costs. At least our inputs for project costs. Out to the right, we'll do the all of the cash flows in a minute. Okay, next we have home sale Proforma. And again, this is a roll-up, so I can just borrow these formulas here. Just grab any of them, copy that, come down here, paste as formulas, Alt-H-V-F, then turn them green. And the resulting net profit, 229,723. If we come here, oops, I got 2. Let's divide that by 4. Again, we're just error checking as we go. 57,431 rounded up, 57,431. Okay, good. And then we move to sources and uses. Again, we do the same thing. Let's just copy and paste. Alt HVF. And then let's select all of these cells and turn them green. And then we can just divide that by 4. 342, 469. 340, yep, that's what it was. We can double check, but yeah, 342, 469, 342, 469, okay? So our sources and uses are almost done. The only thing we have left is the blended loan to cost. And to do that, we go, let's turn this black. We go equals our total debt across the 4 properties divided by the sum of, and remember, the debt is a percentage of land, design, hard, and overhead. So we come up land, design, hard costs, and overhead. So it excludes other financing, marketing. All right, hit enter, and that's 80%, which again is 80%, okay? So we have our sources and uses done. Our other return metrics are calculated based on our cash flows out to the right. So let's come out and do those. And again, the cash flows are simply a roll up of the cash flows from the range of properties. So we'll just grab, it really doesn't matter, but we'll grab this cell here, come out here to the right, and we're going to select this entire section. All right, so we select the entire section there, and we paste Alt HVF as formulas, and then turn those green. Now, you'll notice there's an air check tool already included in the model, and so it has now properly, and so it's working. So next, we're going to do the same thing. We'll just copy that cell again, and just come down to this next one under Home Sale Proforma, select that entire range here, Alt HVF, turn those green, and then keep going. We'll go to this next one. We go, yep, Alt HVF. So we copy over for sources, turn those green. Come down to uses, paste those, Alt HVF as formulas, turn those green, and then we come to our unlevered cash flow, Alt HVF, turn that green, and then levered cash flow, Alt HVF, turn that green. And now we have rolled up all of the cash flows, and you'll see that let's divide this by 4 as an error check. We can do the same for our levered cash flow. Total profit, 69,247 per property, or the sum, 276,988, 229,723, or 57,431 per property. 57,431 per property. Now we also need to look at the IRR and the equity multiple. 39.73% on an unlevered basis with a multiple of 123. 39.73, 123. So our summary tab now is complete, and we have really finished. Now there's a couple things I want to point out. The first is, right now we haven't modeled out the individual lots. And so you'd come here and you say, okay, we have lot 11, and this was what? The Rosebud, the name of the home plan. It's 3,000 square feet, 800 square feet of which is unfinished. It's selling for $399,900. Maybe we go to lot 12. Instead of the Rosebud, this is the Lily Tree. I don't know, I'm just making this up. And it is 2,500 square feet finished, nothing unfinished. These are the costs. But this one sells for, I don't know, $389,900. All right, and you'd go through each one, and maybe we don't feel like we can borrow quite as much. I don't know why. And so you would make adjustments to each one of your homes, and you come back here, and now your summary, it will capture those differences. Let's make a change here. So lot size 7,500. Let's say the lot's slightly smaller here, 6,000, such that our average lot size 7125 now instead of 7500. Now the other thing to point out, and this is where it gets cool. So we've modeled this for 4 properties. Let's imagine that you wanted to create a template for using this exercise, create a template for future projects that you have, but you don't know how many lots or how many homes you may be analyzing at any given time. So long as the worksheet that you duplicate falls between the first and the last worksheet within this range, it will automatically be added to your summary tab. So for instance, we could come to, let's come to lot 12 here. Let's duplicate this again, move or create a copy, and then just, I don't know, drop it in there. Hit OK. Again, it just needs to fall between this and that worksheet. And we'll rename this one, I don't know, lot 1 block B. Oops. And here, lot 1 block B. We can come over here and you're going to see now the total is higher, 34,455, because it's now capturing 5 properties, not 4. And you'll see this, right? 324. If we delete this here, it's back to 266,098. And that was after we made some adjustments to lot 12 to make it slightly smaller and sell for slightly less. So that is my tutorial, taking my single family home construction Proforma and expanding it for multiple properties. Let me know if you have any questions about this Watch Me Build or about the model specifically. Otherwise, thanks for your time.